Hey, night owls and thrill seekers. Before we hit the road, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe for more true horror, and drop a comment with your city and what time you're watching. We love hearing from you. Tonight's ride takes a dark turn as we follow 8 real delivery drivers into the unknown, where empty roads echo with whispers, doorsteps hide unspeakable horrors, and not every customer is human. From late-night pizza runs that end in screams to mysterious addresses that vanish by dawn, these terrifying tales from the darkest corners of Reddit will leave you checking your back seat twice. So buckle up, turn off the lights, and keep your eyes on the road, because tonight, you're not the only one making deliveries.
One story, the house that wasn't there. Darius Kane had been a delivery driver for nearly 4 years. His nights spent weaving through the labyrinthine suburbs of a city that never seemed to sleep. He was used to the monotony of GPS-guided routes, the hum of his van's engine, and the occasional odd customer. But the address on his app tonight, 47, Hollow Crescent, felt wrong from the moment it appeared. The screen flickered as he tapped it, the letters glitching into unreadable symbols before snapping back into place. It was 11:47 p.m., and the air outside was thick with fog, the kind that clung to the skin like damp silk. His GPS led him to a cul-de-sac on the city's edge, where the streetlights flickered like dying embers, casting long, distorted shadows across the cracked pavement. The houses here were old, their paint peeling, their windows boarded or shattered, staring out like hollow eyes. Darius checked the address again, 47 Hollow Crescent. But there was number 47. The house numbers jumped from 45 to 49, with only a tangled patch of weeds and brambles between them, swaying in a wind he couldn't feel. He sat in his van, the engine idling, and double-checked his app. The delivery details were sparse. A small package, no customer name, no special instructions beyond drop-off at front door. He grabbed the package, a wooden box, no bigger than a shoebox, its surface unnaturally cold and slick, as if coated in frost despite the humid August night. The wood was unmarked, save for faint scratches that seemed to shift under his flashlight's beam, forming patterns he couldn't quite decipher. He stepped out, his boots crunching on the gravel, and scanned the lot where 47 should have been. The fog thickened, curling around his ankles like tendrils, and the streetlights dimmed, their buzz growing erratic. His phone vibrated, the screen flashing with a new instruction: leave package in the mailbox. Darius frowned. He hadn't seen a mailbox, but as he swept his flashlight across the lot, its beam caught a glint of rusted metal. There, half buried in the dirt, was an ancient mailbox, its door hanging open like a broken jaw, cobwebs swaying inside despite the still air. He approached, the ground soft and spongy beneath his feet, as if it might swallow him whole. The mailbox reeked of rust and something sweeter, like rotting fruit. He hesitated, the wooden box growing colder in his hands, numbing his fingers. As he placed it inside, the mailbox's lid snapped shut with a deafening clang, grazing his knuckles and drawing a thin line of blood. A low guttural whisper slithered from the ground, not from the mailbox but from the earth itself. "We've been waiting for you, Darius." His name, spoken in a voice like gravel and bone, sent a jolt of ice through his veins. He stumbled back, his flashlight flickering, catching glimpses of movement in the fog shapes, too tall, too thin, too wrong to be human. They darted just beyond the light's reach, their edges blurring into the mist. His van's headlights dimmed, and the engine sputtered, choking out a final cough before falling silent. His app pinged, marking the delivery complete. But the GPS now showed him 20 miles from where he'd parked, in a part of town that didn't exist on any map he'd ever seen. Darius's breath hitched as he backed toward his van, the fog thickening until he could barely see his hands. Footsteps crunched behind him, deliberate and unhurried, matching his pace. He spun around, his flashlight sweeping the lot, but the fog swallowed everything except the faint outline of a house shimmering into existence where 47 should have been. Its walls were warped, the wood blackened as if charred, and its windows glowed a sickly red, pulsing like a heartbeat. Silhouettes moved inside tall, angular figures with limbs that bent at impossible angles, their faces featureless yet watching. Darius's heart pounded as he reached his van, yanking the door open. The wooden box was back in the passenger seat, now etched with his full name, Darius Ezekiel Canaan, jagged, uneven scratches that oozed a dark, viscous fluid. He slammed the door and tried the ignition, but the key wouldn't turn. The air inside the van grew heavy, smelling of rot and damp earth. The footsteps outside stopped, replaced by a low hum, like a chant in a language he didn't understand. His phone vibrated again, the screen displaying a new delivery to 47 Hollow Crescent, scheduled for now. He tried to delete the app, but his phone froze, the screen flickering with static that formed fleeting images his face, distorted, screaming. The van's radio crackled to life, spitting out his name in that same gravelly voice. Darius. Come inside. He threw the phone onto the floor, but it kept buzzing, the screen now showing a live feed of the house, its door creaking open to reveal a hallway that stretched impossibly far, lined with mirrors reflecting not his face, but theirs pale, eyeless, smiling dot. Darius abandoned the van, running into the fog, his boots sinking into the soft ground. The footsteps resumed, closer now, accompanied by whispers that wove through the mist. You can't leave. You're ours. The house loomed larger with each step, its walls pulsing, its windows bleeding red light. He tripped over a route, his flashlight skittering into the weeds, and when he scrambled to his feet, the house was directly in front of him, its door wide open. Inside, the mirrors showed him running, falling, over and over, as if trapped in a loop. He turned to flee, but the cul-de-sac was gone, replaced by an endless expanse of fog and brambles that tore at his skin. His phone, somehow back in his pocket, buzzed with a notification. Package not delivered. Returned to 47 Hollow Crescent. Days passed, or maybe hours, time blurred in the fog. Darius's van was gone, but the wooden box appeared wherever he went, its scratches now forming words. Enter. He tried to resist, sleeping in abandoned lots, hiding in alleys, but the house followed, shimmering into existence at every turn. Its windows multiplied, each one showing a different version of him, older, gaunt, his eyes hollow. The whispers grew louder, a chorus now, chanting his name in unison. One night, exhausted, he approached the door, the box in his hands. The mirrors inside reflected not just him, but everyone he'd ever known, their faces warped, their mouths moving in silent screams. He stepped inside, and the door slammed shut. The fog cleared, and the cul-de-sac was empty again, the mailbox gone, the house vanished. But in the dirt, where 47 should have been, a new scratch appeared each night, forming names of other drivers, one by one. To story the order that never ended, Clara Monroe thrived on the solitude of the graveyard shift, delivering food to late-night customers in a city that pulsed with neon and shadows. At 2:47 a.m., her app pinged with an order for a single black coffee, to be delivered to an apartment complex known for its flickering lights and eerie silence. The customer's name was blank, and the notes were stark. Knock 3 times. Wait. Do not enter. The building loomed in the darkness, its concrete facade stained with watermarks that looked like weeping faces. Clara climbed to the 3rd floor, the fluorescent lights buzzing erratically, casting strobing shadows that seemed to follow her. She reached apartment 312, its door scratched and dented, the wood swollen as if it had been underwater. She knocked 3 times, the sound echoing unnaturally, as if the building were hollow. No answer came. She knocked again, and the door creaked open an inch, revealing a void of darkness inside. A voice, soft and rasping like dry leaves, whispered, "From within? Leave it on the floor?" Clara's hands trembled as she set the coffee down, the cup's lid rattling faintly. As she turned to leave, the cup jolted, sliding across the floor. She spun around to see it, levitating, the black liquid dripping upward, defying gravity, and pooling on the ceiling in a perfect, glistening circle. The door slammed shut with a force that shook the walls, and her phone buzzed with a tip notification, "See you tomorrow." Clara fled, her heart pounding, and swore off night shifts. The next evening, her app reactivated itself, displaying the same order for apartment 312. She tried to delete it, but her phone froze, the screen flickering with static that formed fleeting images of her own face, distorted and eyeless. Against her will, she drove to the complex, the city's lights dimming as she approached. The coffee cup was still on the floor, but it was empty, now filled with a viscous, red sludge that reeked of iron. The ceiling stain had grown, its edges curling into the shape of Clara's face, as if painted by an unseen hand. Each night, the order reappeared, and the stain became more detailed, her eyes, her mouth, her terrified expression. The hallway lights began to flicker in patterns, spelling words in Morse code. "Come inside." Clara tried to quit, but her app locked her out, and her van's engine started on its own, driving her to the complex. The door to 312 was always ajar now, the darkness inside pulsing like a living thing. She heard footsteps behind the walls, slow and deliberate, matching her own. One night, she peeked inside, her flashlight revealing a hallway that stretched impossibly far, lined with portraits of hurry, sleeping, driving, all painted in that same red sludge. The voice whispered her name, closer now, and the coffee cup floated toward her, its contents bubbling. She ran, but the portraits followed, appearing in her rearview mirror, on her apartment walls, in her dreams. Last night, the door opened before she knocked, and the voice invited her inside, promising to show her what the coffee was made of. This morning, her van's seats were stained red, and her reflection in the mirror wasn't hers, was smiling, holding an empty cup. Story: The Package That Bled. Jamal Carter had been a delivery driver for 6 years, long enough to know that some packages were just plain weird boxes that rattled inexplicably, packages that reeked of strange spices, or customers who never showed their faces, preferring shadows to light. But nothing prepared him for the package that appeared in his van that night. October 23rd, at 1:13 a.m., under a sky choked with clouds that swallowed the moon. The small, soggy cardboard box sat alone in the cargo area of his beat-up delivery van, unlisted on his manifest, untracked by his app. It was no bigger than a loaf of bread, its edges soft and damp, pulsing faintly as if it had a heartbeat of its own. The air around it carried a sharp, coppery stench, like blood left a pool in the sun, mixed with something sweeter, like rotting fruit. Jamal's stomach churned as he approached it, his flashlight beam trembling in his hand. He didn't remember picking it up, didn't recall scanning it or loading it, but there it was, demanding his attention. The label was smeared, the ink or something darker running in streaks across the cardboard, illegible, except for a single word scrawled in jagged, crimson letters: urgent. The letters seemed to writhe under his light, curling like worms before settling back into place. His delivery app, usually a reliable guide through the city's maze, showed only one instruction: deliver to 718 Rust Street, front entrance, no signature required. Rust Street was on the city's outskirts, a forgotten industrial district where warehouses crumbled into rust and weeds. Jamal had passed the area before, its derelict buildings looming like tombstones, but he'd never stopped there. The graffiti on their walls always seemed to shift when he wasn't looking, forming faces, eyes, mouths that watched from the shadows. He shook off the unease, chalking it up to late-night fatigue, and started the van. The engine's rumble a small comfort against the oppressive silence outside. The drive to Russ Street was unnervingly quiet, the city's usual hum of traffic and neon absent. The streetlights flickered as he approached, casting the warehouse at 718 in a sickly yellow glow that did little to pierce the darkness. The building was a hulking relic, its windows boarded with splintered plywood, its walls tagged with graffiti that seemed to pulse in his peripheral vision, names, symbols, faces with hollow eyes. The air was heavy, oppressive, carrying the distant hum of a generator that sounded like a low, throbbing heartbeat, resonating in Jamal's chest. He parked, the van's headlights barely cutting through the fog that curled around the lot, illuminating rusted machinery scattered like the bones of some ancient beast. He checked his app again, hoping for an error, but the address was clear, 718 Russ Street. The package felt heavier than it looked, its surface damp and warm, as if sweating despite the chill. His fingers sank slightly into the soggy cardboard, leaving imprints that filled with a dark, viscous fluid. He suppressed a gag and stepped out, his boots crunching on gravel that seemed to shift underfoot, as if alive. The warehouse's metal door was rusted, dented in places as if something had tried to claw its way out. Jamal knocked, the sound dull and swallowed by the silence, like knocking on a coffin. No answer. He knocked again, harder, the impact stinging his knuckles. But the warehouse remained still, the generator's hum growing louder, vibrating through the ground. He set the box on the cracked concrete steps, eager to be done with it, to leave this place and its creeping dread behind. As he did, the cardboard split open with a wet, tearing sound, like flesh giving way under a blade. A thick, red liquid oozed out, pooling around his sneakers, warm and sticky against his skin, its coppery stench overwhelming. He stumbled back, his breath catching in his throat, as the liquid writhed on the ground, forming words in a slow, deliberate script. "You're late." The letters glistened, pulsing in time with the generator's hum, and a low moan echoed from inside the warehouse, deep and guttural, like a beast waking from a long sleep. The sound was followed by something heavy dragging across the floor, slow, deliberate, scraping like claws on metal, growing closer with each second. Jamal's heart pounded as he sprinted to his van, his shoes leaving bloody prints that steamed in the cold air. He slammed the door, his hands shaking as he fumbled with the keys, the engine roaring to life just as the warehouse door creaked open an inch, revealing a sliver of darkness that seemed to breathe. He peeled out, the tires screeching, the warehouse shrinking in his rearview mirror, but the smell of copper lingered, clinging to his clothes, his skin, his lungs. He drove 4 hours, the city's lights blurring past, trying to shake the image of that oozing box and the words it formed. He stopped at a 24-hour gas station, the fluorescent lights harsh against his frayed nerves. He scrubbed his hands in the bathroom sink, the water running red, then pink, then clear, but the stains remained, faint but indelible, etched into his skin like a tattoo. His reflection in the cracked mirror looked wrong, his eyes too wide, his skin too pale, as if something had drained the life from him. His phone buzzed, and his stomach dropped as he saw a new delivery notification. 718 Russ Street. Same package, marked urgent. He checked the cargo area, his flashlight trembling, and there it was, the same soggy box, heavier now, its pulsing louder, like a heartbeat synchronized with his own. The cardboard was wetter, the crimson letters spelling urgent now joined by a single word, Jamal. His name, scrawled in that same jagged script, seemed to pulse with the box, as if it knew him, as if it had always known him. He tried to refuse the job, swiping frantically to cancel, but his app froze, the screen flickering with static that formed fleeting images his face. Distorted, screaming, his eyes replaced by empty sockets. His van's engine started on its own, the steering wheel jerking under his hands, guiding him back to Rust Street. The city seemed to warp around him, streets looping back on themselves, buildings tilting inward like predators closing in, their windows glinting like eyes. Each night, the deliveries continued, relentless, unyielding. The boxes multiplied, filling his cargo area, each one leaking that same red liquid, each one whispering his name in a chorus of voices that echoed inside his skull, high and low, male and female, young and old, all speaking as one. The warehouse's door was ajar now, the dragging sound closer, accompanied by the glint of eyes in the darkness. Too many, too bright, too hungry, their pupils dilating as they fixed on him. The graffiti on the walls had changed, forming his name in looping, crimson script that pulsed in time with the liquid on the ground. Jamal tried to quit, deleting the app, smashing his phone with a hammer until it was a mess of plastic and glass. But a new phone appeared in his van the next day. Already logged in, the delivery queued, the screen glowing with his name. He stopped. Sleeping, the moans and dragging sounds haunting him, even in daylight, growing louder each time he closed his eyes. His apartment became a prison, the walls stained with faint red streaks that appeared overnight, pooling into words, "You're late." He tried burning the boxes, but they wouldn't catch fire, the flames licking around them as if afraid to touch. He tried throwing them into a dumpster, but they were back in his van by morning, heavier, wetter, their whispers louder. One night, desperate to end it, he opened the box before delivering it. His hands shook as he tore the cardboard, revealing a mass of pulsing, raw flesh, veins throbbing, eyes blinking up at him, his face, staring back with a smile that wasn't his. The moan from the warehouse became a scream, sharp and piercing, and the door swung wide, revealing a hallway that stretched impossibly far, lined with more boxes, each one labeled with his name in that crimson script. Jamal dropped the box, the flesh slithering toward him, its veins reaching like tendrils. He ran, but the warehouse seemed to move with him, its walls closing in, the hallway stretching behind him, no matter how fast he fled. His van was gone when he reached the lot, replaced by a pile of boxes, all oozing, all whispering. Their voices now a cacophony that drowned out his thoughts. He hitchhiked home, the driver refusing to look at him, muttering about the smell of blood, but the deliveries followed, packages appearing at his doorstep, in his kitchen, under his bed, each one heavier, each one pulsing louder. His mirrors reflected not his face, but the flesh from the box, its eyes watching, its mouth smiling, its veins spreading across the glass like cracks. Weeks passed, or maybe months' time, blurred in the haze of fear and exhaustion. Jamal stopped, leaving his apartment, boarding the windows, chaining the door. But the boxers found him, stacking higher each night, their liquid seeping through the floorboards, pooling in his living room, his bedroom, his dreams. The red stains on his hands grew darker, spreading up his arms, burning like acid. His phone, the new one, buzzed constantly, the screen showing a live feed of the warehouse's hallway, now filled with figures tall, thin, their faces his own, their eyes empty, their mouths moving in unison. "You're here," he tried to scream, but his voice was gone, replaced by the hum of the generator, now inside him, vibrating in his bones. One night, he heard the dragging sound outside his door, slow and heavy, followed by a knock, 3 sharp raps that echoed like gunshots. He didn't answer, couldn't move, his body frozen as the red liquid seeped under the door, pooling on his floor, forming new words. "Open us." The knock came again, louder, and the door creaked open, revealing darkness that pulsed like a living thing. The figures from the hallway stood there, their faces his, their hands holding boxers that oozed and whispered. Jamal backed away, tripping over the pile in his living room, the flesh inside, writhing, its eyes locking onto his. The warehouse's hum filled his apartment, drowning out his heartbeat, and the figures stepped closer, their voices merging with the boxers. "You're late." He stumbled to the bathroom, splashing water on his face, but the sink ran red, the mirror showing only the flesh, its veins now wrapping around his reflection's throat. He smashed the mirror, the shards cutting his hands, but the pieces reflected the same face, the same eyes, the same smile. The boxers were everywhere now, stacked to the ceiling, their liquid flooding his apartment, rising to his ankles, his knees, his waist. He waded through it, the whispers deafening, the eyes watching from every surface, walls, windows, even the ceiling, where the liquid formed his name in dripping, crimson letters. His phone buzzed one last time, the screen showing a new delivery. Address, his own apartment, 4C, with a single instruction, open. Jamal sank to the floor, the liquid warm against his skin, the boxes pressing in, their pulses syncing with his own. The dragging sound was inside now, circling him, and the figures stood at the edge of the room, their faces his, their hands reaching. He closed his eyes, but the darkness was no escape. The eyes were there too, blinking in the void, their pupils dilating as they focused on him. The last thing he heard was the cardboard tearing, the flesh slithering free, and the voices, now his own, whispering, "You're here." His apartment was empty the next morning, the boxes gone, the stains vanished, but the neighbors reported a faint hum, like a generator, coming from 4C, and a coppery smell that lingered in the hall. For Story, the passenger in the van Lila Nguyen had always preferred the late-night delivery shifts, where the world was quiet, and the roads belonged to her alone. The city's neon buzz faded after midnight, leaving only the hum of her van's engine and the occasional flicker of a streetlight to keep her company. It was October 27, 2025, at 11:43 p.m., and the air was thick with the chill of autumn, the kind that seeped into your bones and made every shadow seem alive. Her delivery app pinged with a last-minute job, a single package to a remote cabin deep in the Blackthorn Woods, 30 miles outside the city. The address, 47 Ravens End Lane, was unfamiliar, buried in a part of the forest known for its dense gnarled trees and winding dirt roads that seemed to lead nowhere. The instructions were stark: leave package on porch, do not knock, no signature required. Leela frowned at the screen, the app's interface glitching slightly, the letters flickering before settling. She shrugged it off. Her phone was old, prone to quirks, and started the drive, the city's lights fading in her rearview mirror. The road to Blackthorn Woods was a twisting ribbon of dirt, barely wide enough for her van. The trees loomed closer, with each mile, their branches clawing at the sky, blocking the moonlight until the world was a tunnel of shadow. Her van's radio crackled with static, spitting out garbled words in a language she couldn't place low, guttural syllables that sounded like prayers chanted backward. She turned it off, but the static lingered, faint and persistent, like a whisper just beyond hearing. The package sat in the cargo area, a small burlap-wrapped bundle no bigger than a book, unremarkable except for the faint smell of damp earth and mildew that clung to it like a grave freshly dug. The label was handwritten, the ink smudged, bearing only the address and a single word: deliver. Leela's flashlight beam caught the burlap as she checked it, revealing faint stains that looked like fingerprints, though they vanished when she looked closer. The cabin appeared suddenly, a squat, weathered structure at the end of the road, its wooden walls warped and gray, as if the forest were slowly consuming it. The windows were dark, boarded in places, and the porch sagged under the weight of neglect, its planks splintered and coated in moss. Lila parked, the van's headlights casting long shadows that seemed to writhe across the cabin's facade. The air was heavy, thick with the scent of pine and something sour, like decay. She grabbed the package, its surface cold and slightly damp, and stepped out, her boots sinking into the soft earth. The forest was silent, no crickets, no owls, just the oppressive weight of stillness, as if the trees were holding their breath. She approached the porch, her flashlight beam jittery, catching glints of movement in the shadows too quick, too fluid to be human. The instructions echoed in her mind, "Do not knock." She set the package on the porch, its burlap crinkling like dry leaves, and turned to leave. But a faint tapping stopped her cold. The sound came from her van, a soft rhythmic tap, like a loose tool rolling in the cargo area. She froze, her breath catching, the forest's silence amplifying the noise. Tap, tap, tap. It was deliberate, almost like a code, echoing in the stillness. She shook her head, muttering to herself about the van's quirks. Maybe a wrench had come loose during the bumpy drive. She walked back, her flashlight sweeping the cargo area through the rear window. It was empty, just as she'd left it, the metal floor gleaming under her light. But the smell of damp earth was stronger now, suffocating, and the tapping grew louder, moving to the passenger seat. She opened the driver's door, her heart thudding, and slid inside, locking the doors. The tapping continued, insistent, now accompanied by a faint scratching, like nails dragging across metal. She glanced at the passenger window and froze. Muddy fingerprints smeared the glass from the inside, forming a handprint too large to be human, with too many finger six, maybe 7. Their tips elongated and sharp. Lila's breath hitched, her hands trembling as she fumbled with the keys. The van roared to life, and she sped down the dirt road, the trees blurring past, their branches scraping the van's roof like claws. The tapping followed, louder now, a steady rhythm that matched her racing pulse. The scratching grew frantic, and the muddy handprint spread, smearing across the window as if something were dragging its fingers, searching for a way out. She swerved, nearly hitting a tree, and the handprint vanished, leaving only streaks of dirt that glistened like oil. Her phone buzzed, the app displaying a new delivery to 47 Ravens End Lane, identical to the last, but with a chilling addition. Passenger, unknown. Lila's stomach dropped. She hadn't picked up anyone, hadn't seen anyone, but the app's interface glitched again. The word unknown flickering into her name, Lila Nuembi, for reverting. She drove for hours, the forest refusing to end, the dirt road looping back on itself, the cabin reappearing in the distance no matter which way she turned. The tapping never stopped, moving from the passenger seat to the cargo area, then back, a relentless presence that seemed to circle her. The smell of earth filled the van, choking her, and the radio crackled back on, spitting out her name in that guttural backward chant, Lila. Lila. She slammed the radio off, but the voice continued, echoing inside her skull. She stopped at a clearing, her hands shaking as she checked the cargo area again. The burlap package was back, unwrapped now, revealing a handful of dirt that writhed like worms, forming her initials in a slow, deliberate crawl. The tapping became a knock, loud and forceful, shaking the van's frame, and the passenger door creaked open an inch, letting in a gust of cold air that smelled of graves. Lila slammed the door shut, locking it, but the knocks grew louder, coming from all sides, now roof, floor, windows. The muddy fingerprints reappeared, spreading across every window, forming handprints, faces, eyes that stared through the glass. She screamed, flooring the gas, but the forest tightened around her, the trees bending lower, their branches weaving a cage over the road. Her phone buzzed again, the app showing a live feed of the van's interior, her sitting in the driver's seat, her face pale, her eyes wide with terror. But in the passenger seat, there was a shadow, humanoid but wrong, its limbs too long, its head tilted at an impossible angle. The feed cut out, and the knocking stopped, replaced by a low, wet breathing. Close enough to feel on her neck. She drove blindly, tears blurring her vision. The cabin reappearing every few miles, its windows now glowing with a sickly green light. The package multiplied, filling the cargo area, each bundle leaking dirt that writhed and whispered her name. She tried to call for help, but her phone only played the radio's chant, louder, more insistent. She stopped answering deliveries, but the app kept assigning them, all to 47 Ravens End Lane, all with passenger, unknown. She abandoned the van one night, running into the forest, but the trees seemed to move, guiding her back to the cabin. The porch was covered in burlap bundles now, each one pulsing, each one bearing her name. The door was open, revealing a hallway that stretched impossibly far, lined with mirrors reflecting not her face, but the shadows, its eyes black, its mouth a gaping maw. Leela's life unraveled. She quit her job, but the van appeared outside her apartment, its engine running, its windows smeared with fingerprints. She moved, changed her name, but the packages followed, appearing in her mailbox, her closet, her bed. The dirt inside grew, wetter, redder, forming words. "You can't leave." The knocking woke her at night, coming from her walls, her ceiling, her own chest. Her mirrors showed the shadow now, closer each day, its fingers brushing her reflection's throat. She stopped sleeping, the breathing sound constant, the smell of earth choking her. One night, she found the van parked in her living room, the passenger door open, the seat empty but warm, as if something had just left. The burlap package was on her pillow, unwrapped, the dirt forming a perfect replica of her face, its eyes blinking up at her. Weeks turned to months, time blurring in a haze of fear. Leela boarded her windows, chained her doors, but the knocking persisted, the fingerprints spreading to her walls, her skin. Her phone, long destroyed, reappeared on her nightstand, the app open, the delivery queued. The forest seemed to invade her apartment, vines creeping through cracks, the air thick with mildew. She heard the breathing behind her now, felt cold, fingers on her neck, saw the shadow in every shadow. Last night, the van was inside her bedroom, its headlights on, illuminating a figure in the passenger seat, her, but not her, its face, a mask of dirt and worms, smiling. The door opened, and the figure reached out, its fingers sinking into her arm, cold and wet. The app buzzed, the screen showing a new instruction: deliver yourself. The forest closed in, the cabin's green light glowing through her walls, and the knocking became her heartbeat, pulling her toward the open door. 5-story, the endless route. Tomas Rivera had been a delivery driver for 5 years, navigating the sprawling suburbs of a city that never seemed to sleep. His nights filled with the hum of his van's engine and the glow of his GPS. He preferred the late shifts, where the roads were quiet, and the world felt like it belonged to him alone. But on the night of August 6, 2025, at 12:06 a.m., as a thunderstorm rolled in, his delivery app glitched, the screen flickering with static, before locking on to a single address, 13 Whispering Pines Lane. The suburb was unfamiliar, tucked away, in a part of town he'd never driven through, where the streets were narrow and the houses old, their windows dark and uninviting. The instructions were simple: deliver package to front porch. No signature required. But the app's interface was off, the map spinning aimlessly, the street names shifting into unreadable symbols before snapping back. Tomas frowned, chalking it up to the storm, and started the drive, the rain pounding his windshield like 1,000 tiny fists. The road to Whispering Pines was a maze of identical streets, each one lined with cracked sidewalks, flickering streetlights, and houses with no numbers or signs of life. The storm intensified, lightning illuminating the sky in jagged bursts, revealing the suburb's eerie uniformity: every house the same, every lawn overgrown, every window boarded or shattered. Tomas's GPS spun, unable to lock onto a signal, its voice stuttering, turn, 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 until it fell silent. His phone buzzed, the app showing a new package in his cargo area, though he hadn't picked anything up. He pulled over, his flashlight beam cutting through the rain-soaked darkness, and found it a heavy, rectangular package wrapped in brittle, yellowed paper, its surface stained with dark, wet patches that smelled of blood and soil. The handwriting on the label was faint, unreadable, squirming under his light, like worms under skin. He shivered, the air in the van growing thick with the scent of decay, and checked the app again. 13 Whispering Pines Lane, front porch, the house. At 13 Whispering Pines was a squat, dilapidated structure, its paint peeling like dead skin, its windows boarded with warped plywood that seemed to pulse in the storm's flashes. The porch was sagging, covered in moss and littered with leaves that moved against the wind. Tomas gripped the package, its weight unnatural, shifting as if something inside were alive, bones grinding together, a faint clatter that made his skin crawl. He stepped out, the rain soaking him instantly. The ground soft and spongy beneath his boots, as if it might swallow him whole. The streetlights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to follow him, their shapes too tall, too angular to be human. He reached the porch, his flashlight trembling, and set the package down, its paper crinkling like dry bones. As he turned to leave, the package shifted, the sound of grinding louder now, and the app buzzed, delivery incomplete. Return to 13 Whispering Pines Lane. Tomas froze, his heart pounding. He checked his phone, but the app was frozen, the map looping back to the same street, the same house. He sped off, the van's tires slipping on the wet road, but the GPS reset, guiding him back to Whispering Pines. The rain pounded harder, the street lights dimming, their buzz growing erratic, like a swarm of insects. He stopped at the same house, the package back in his cargo area. Heavier now, the handwriting clearer, spelling fragments of his name, P.O.M. He carried it to the porch again, the grinding sound louder. The paper now slick with a dark, oily substance that stained his hands. As he set it down, the boards under the windows creaked, and he caught a glimpse of movement, pale faces pressing against the glass, their eyes glowing like embers, their mouths moving in silent unison, chanting words he couldn't hear. He ran back to the van, his breath ragged, and drove off, but the road looped, the house reappearing, its windows now unboarded, the faces clearer, their eyes fixed on him. Hours passed, the storm unrelenting, and the loop continued. Each time Tomas tried to leave, the streets twisted back, the houses multiplying, all identical, all watching. The packages multiplied too, filling his cargo area, each one heavier, the handwriting spelling more of his name, P.O.M.S. The stains on the paper grew wetter, redder, pooling on the van's floor, the smell of blood and soil choking him. He tried calling for help, but his phone only played static, laced with whispers that sounded like his voice, pleading, screaming. The app locked him out of other deliveries, showing only 13 Whispering Pines Lane. The map now a spiral that pulsed like a heartbeat. He stopped at the house again, the porch now covered in packages, their paper peeling away, revealing glimpses of bone, teeth, and eyes that blinked up at him. The faces in the windows were closer, their features sharper, his features distorted, their mouths stretched into silent screams. Tomas's mind frayed as the night stretched on, time blurring, in the endless loop. He tried different routes, speeding through side streets. But every road led back to Whispering Pines, the houses closing in, their windows glowing brighter, the faces multiplying. The packages began to open on their own, the bones inside clattering into words. "Stay with us," he screamed, throwing them from the van, but they reappeared, heavier, their whispers louder. Now, a chorus of voices, his voice, his mother's, his friends, all chanting his name. The van's mirrors reflected not his face, but theirs, pale and eyeless, their mouths moving in sync with the whispers. He smashed the mirrors, the shards cutting his hands. But the reflections followed, appearing in the windows, the rain, the puddles that formed his name in crimson ripples. Desperate, Tomas abandoned the van, running into the storm, the rain stinging his skin like needles. The suburbs seemed to shift, the houses moving closer, their doors creaking open, revealing hallways that stretched into darkness. The faces followed, their eyes glowing in the shadows, their hands reaching from the doorways, cold and bony, brushing his arms. He stumbled through the streets, the ground sinking beneath him, the packages appearing at his feet, their bones spilling out, forming his full name, Tomas Rivera. The whispers grew deafening, a cacophony that drowned out the storm, and the streetlights flickered in patterns, spelling words in Morse code. You belong here. He found the van again, parked in front of 13 Whispering Pines. Its doors open, the cargo area overflowing with packages that pulsed and bled. Tomas tried to flee the suburb entirely, hitchhiking to the city, but the roads looped back. The van, waiting for him, its engine running, its headlights illuminating the house. He burned the packages, but the flames only made them heavier, their bones gleaming in the firelight, their eyes watching. He smashed his phone, but a new one appeared on the driver's seat, the app open, the delivery queued. His apartment became a trap, the walls stained with the same dark, oily substance, pooling into words, stay. The faces appeared in his windows, his mirrors, his dreams, their eyes glowing brighter, their mouths chanting louder. He stopped sleeping, the whispers constant, the grinding of bones echoing in his chest. One night, he opened a package, unable to resist, and found a skeletal hand, its fingers twitching, reaching for him. The house's door was open now, the hallway lined with mirrors reflecting his face. But older, gaunt, his eyes hollow, his mouth moving in sync with the faces. Weeks turned to months, time a haze of fear and exhaustion. Tomas boarded his windows, chained his doors, but the packages found him, stacking to the ceiling, their liquid seeping through the floorboards, flooding his apartment. The faces were everywhere, their hands brushing his skin, their whispers filling his mind. The van appeared outside his window, its headlights on, illuminating a figure in the driver's seat. Him. But not him, its face a mask of bone and shadow, smiling. The app buzzed, showing a new instruction. Deliver yourself to 13 Whispering Pines Lane. The suburb's streets seemed to invade his apartment, the walls cracking to reveal cracked sidewalks, flickering streetlights. Last night, the van was in his living room, its doors open, the packages spilling out, their bones forming a path to the house. The faces stood at the edge of the room, their hands reaching, their voices chanting, "You're home." Tomas stepped into the van, the door slamming shut, and the road stretched on, endless. The house always waiting, its windows glowing, its mirrors reflecting him forever. Sixth story. The silent customer Lina Vasquez had been delivering packages for nearly a decade. Her nights spent navigating the city's labyrinthine streets under the glow of neon signs and flickering streetlights. The routine was the van, follow the GPS, drop off the goods, and move on. But on August 6, 2025, at 11:58 p.m., as the city settled into an uneasy quiet, her delivery app pinged with a job that felt wrong from the start. The address was a gated mansion at 23 Thornwood Estate, a sprawling Gothic relic on the city's outskirts. Known for its isolation and the rumors that clung to it, like ivy stories of lights flickering in empty rooms, of shadows that moved, without owners. The instructions were precise, almost clinical. Place package in dumbwaiter. Do not enter. No signature required. The customer's name was blank, the app's interface glitching briefly, the address flickering into unreadable symbols before snapping back. Alina shrugged it off, blaming her aging phone, and started the drive. The city's hum fading as she left the lights behind. Thornwood Estate was a 40-minute drive through winding roads, the pavement giving way to gravel that crunched under her van's tires like brittle bones. The night was heavy, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and something sour, like wilted flowers left too long in water. Her van's headlights struggled against the darkness, illuminating gnarled trees that leaned inward, their branches scraping the roof like claws. The mansion loomed at the end of a long, gated driveway, its iron gates rusted and ornate, creaking open as she approached, though she saw no one to open them. The building itself was a monolith of gray stone, its spires piercing the sky, its windows dark and boarded, save for a few that glinted like eyes catching the moonlight. The gardens were choked with thorns and wilted roses, their petals scattered across the ground, glistening as if bleeding. Alina parked, her heart thudding, and grabbed the package, a small, rectangular box wrapped in plain brown paper, its surface cold as ice, heavier than it looked. With a faint vibration that hummed against her palms, the dumbwaiter was set into the mansion's side wall, a rusted wooden contraption that looked more like a relic from another century than a functional device. Its cables groaned as she opened the door, the sound echoing like a moan in the still air. The instructions were clear: place package in dumbwaiter, do not enter. She set the box inside, its weight making the cables creak, and pressed the button to send it down. The dumbwaiter descended with a grinding wail, disappearing into the unseen depths of the mansion, the sound fading into a low, rhythmic hum, like a heartbeat buried in the walls. Alina waited, expecting the usual ping from her app to confirm delivery, but her phone remained silent. She turned to leave, her boots crunching on the gravel, but the dumbwaiter groaned again, ascending faster than it should. It returned with a new package labeled, wrapped in black cloth that seemed to absorb the light, cold as frost, and heavier than the first, as if filled with stones. Alina stared, her breath catching. This wasn't part of the job. She checked her app, but it was frozen, the screen displaying only static that flickered with faint images. Her face distorted, her eyes too large, her mouth open in a silent scream. The mansion's windows glinted, reflecting her van, but the angles were wrong, showing her standing in places she wasn't in: the porch, in the garden, inside the house. Curiosity, sharp and reckless, overwhelmed her fear. She unwrapped the black cloth, her hands trembling, revealing a bundle of Polaroids tied with a thin red cord. The photos showed her life in intimate detail: her sleeping in her apartment, her eating breakfast at her kitchen table, her driving her van through the city streets. The final photo was the most chilling: her standing at the dumbwaiter, taken moments ago, from an impossible angle above, as if the ceiling itself had eyes. The cord snapped as she dropped the photos, scattering into the wind, carried away by a sudden gust that smelled of decay and roses. Her phone buzzed, the app unfreezing to display a new delivery request: 23 Thornwood Estate. You looked. Bring yourself next time. Alina's blood ran cold. She sprinted to her van, the gravel shifting underfoot, the gates creaking shut behind her as she sped away. The mansion's silhouette lingered in her rearview mirror, its windows glowing faintly red, as if watching her go. She drove back to the city, the roads twisting longer than they should, the trees leaning closer, their branches scraping like whispers. Alina. She locked her apartment door that night, checking it twice, but the smell of roses followed her, faint but persistent, seeping into her dreams. She woke to find a single Polaroid under her pillow, her sleeping, taken hours ago. The mansion's gates in the background, their iron bars twisted into her initials. The deliveries continued, relentless. Each night, her app assigned the same job: 23 Thornwood Estate, same instructions, same package. She tried refusing, deleting the app, but her phone reactivated itself, the screen glowing with the mansion's address. Her van's engine started on its own, the steering wheel guiding her back to the estate, the gates always open, the roses always bleeding. The dumbwaiter groaned louder each time, its cables snapping like overstretched tendons, returning with new packages: black cloth, cold, heavy, each one containing more Polaroids. They showed her in places she'd never been, standing in the mansion's garden, walking its halls, staring out its windows. The photos grew older, yellowed, as if taken decades ago, her face unchanged, but the mansion's walls crumbling. The roses wilted to dust. The final photo each night was always the same her at the dumbwaiter, the angles shifting slightly, closer, as if whatever watched her was descending. Elena's life unraveled. She stopped sleeping, the hum of the dumbwaiter echoing in her ears, the smell of roses choking her apartment. Her mirrors began to reflect, not her face, but hers, pale, eyeless, smiling with teeth too sharp, too many. She smashed them, but the shards showed the same face, its smile wider, its eyes blacker. The Polaroids multiplied, appearing in her drawers, her fridge, her bed, each one more detailed, more invasive. One showed her showering, the water running red. Another showed her eating, the food crawling with thorns. She tried moving, leaving the city, but the van followed, parked outside her new apartment, its engine running, its cargo area filled with black cloth packages. The app locked her out of other jobs, showing only Thornwood Estate. The map now, a spiral that pulsed like a wound. One night, desperate, she opened a package before delivering it. Inside was a small, cracked mirror, its surface cold and fogged, reflecting not her face, but the mansion's hallway, long dark, lined with doors that opened and closed on their own. Shadows moved within, tall and thin, their limbs bending at wrong angles, their faces hers, but wrong, their mouths chanting silently. The dumbwaiter's cables hummed her name, a low, mournful tune that vibrated in her chest. She dropped the mirror, the glass shattering, but the shards reflected the same hallway. The shadows closer, their hands reaching through the frame. She ran to her van, but the gates were already open, the mansion's windows glowing brighter, redder, the roses dripping blood that pooled into words. Come inside. Elena tried burning the photos, but they wouldn't catch, the flames curling away, as if afraid. She threw them into a dumpster, but they were back in her apartment by morning, stacked neatly. The top one showing her standing in the mansion's doorway, though she'd never entered. The hum grew louder, now coming from her walls, her ceiling, her own throat. She stopped eating, the taste of roses and everything, her skin prickling with the sensation of thorns. Her neighbors complained of a smelled EK blood, flowers coming from her apartment, but when they knocked, she couldn't answer, her voice stolen by the hum. The van appeared inside her living room one night, its headlights on, illuminating a figure in the passenger seat, her, but not her, its face pale, its eyes sewn shut with red thread, its mouth smiling with thorns. Weeks turned to months, time a haze of fear and exhaustion. Elena boarded her windows, chained her doors, but the packages found her, stacking to the ceiling, their black cloth unraveling to reveal mirrors, each one reflecting the mansion's hallway. The shadows closer, their faces clearer hers, but older, gaunt, eyeless. The hum was constant now, shaking her apartment. Her bones, her phone, long destroyed, reappeared on her nightstand. The app open, the delivery queued. 23 Thornwood Estate. Deliver yourself. The roses grew through her floorboards, their thorns wrapping around her furniture, her legs, her heart. Last night, the dumbwaiter was in her bedroom, its cables humming her name, its door open, revealing a hallway that stretched into her apartment. The shadows stepped out, their hands cold, their faces hers, their voices whispering, "You're home." Helena stepped inside, the gates closing behind her, and the mansion was silent again, the roses blooming, the Polaroids blank, waiting for the next driver's name. Seventh story. The delivery that watched. Ravi Patel had been a delivery driver for 7 years. His nights spent weaving through the city's quieter suburbs, where the streets were lined with modest bungalows and the occasional hum of a distant car. He liked the routine: load the van, follow the app, drop off the package, move on. It was simple, predictable, a way to keep his mind off the stresses of life. But on August 6, 2025, at 12:09 a.m., as a light drizzle coated his windshield, his delivery app pinged with a job that set his nerves on edge. The address was 82 Maple Grove Lane, a nondescript bungalow in a neighborhood he'd driven through countless times. Yet the app's interface glitched, the map flickering with static before locking onto the destination. The instructions were specific: place package in backyard, do not open, no signature required. The customer's name was blank, and the app's interface seemed to pulse, the letters of the address twisting briefly into symbols Ravi couldn't read before snapping back into place. He shook it off, blaming his old phone, and started the drive, the city's lights dimming as he entered the suburb. The package was a small wooden box, no bigger than a jewelry case, sitting alone in his van's cargo area. It was warm to the touch, unnervingly so, as if it had been sitting in the sun despite the cool, rainy night. The wood was carved with strange spiraling symbols that seemed to shift under his flashlight's beam, curling like smoke before settling back into place. Faint scratches came from within, like claws scraping against the grain, growing louder when he held the box, as if something inside were responding to his touch. The air in the van grew heavy, carrying a faint metallic temps, like old coins or blood. Ravi's stomach churned, but he pushed the unease aside, focusing on the job. Maple Grove Lane was a quiet street, its bungalows dark, their lawns neatly trimmed but eerily still, as if no one had lived there in years. The drizzle thickened, blurring his headlights, and the streetlights flickered, casting long, distorted shadows that seemed to follow his van. Number 82 was a low, squat bungalow, its beige siding faded, its windows dark except for a faint glow from the backyard. A security camera hung above the back door, its red light blinking rhythmically, almost hypnotically, as if syncing with Ravi's heartbeat. He parked, the van's engine ticking as it cooled, and grabbed the box, its warmth spreading through his gloves, the scratches inside growing frantic, like a trapped animal clawing for freedom. The backyard was enclosed by a sagging wooden fence, its gate creaking as he pushed it open. The grass was overgrown, wet with rain, and the air smelled of damp earth and something sharper, like rust. He set the box down near the back door, as instructed, his flashlight catching the camera's red light, which seemed to pulse faster now, watching him. The scratches stopped abruptly, replaced by a low hum, like a distant machine waking up. Ravi turned to leave, but his app buzzed. Delivery incomplete. Return to 82 Maple Grove Lane. His heart skipped. He checked the app, but it was frozen. The map showing only Maple Grove Lane, the street looping in a spiral that pulsed like a vein. He sped off, the rain streaking his windshield, but the GPS reset, guiding him back to the bungalow. The box was in his cargo area again, warmer now, the symbols glowing faintly, their spirals tighter, more intricate. He carried it to the backyard, the camera's red light blinking faster, the hum louder, vibrating in his chest. As he set it down, the back door creaked open an inch, revealing a sliver of darkness that seemed to breathe. He ran to his van, his boots slipping on the wet grass, and drove off, but the street looped, the bungalow reappearing, its windows now glowing a sickly yellow, the camera's light steady, unblinking, fixed on him. The next morning, his app sent a video attachment from the customer, labeled delivery confirmation. Ravi's hands trembled as he opened it. The footage showed him placing the box in the backyard, filmed from multiple angles behind the fence, through the windows, from above, even from inside the van. Impossible for a single camera. The video lingered on his face, zooming in until his eyes filled the screen, wide with fear, his breath visible in the cold air. The footage cut to static, then showed him driving home, sleeping in his bed, eating breakfast, all from angles he couldn't explain. His phone buzzed again. A new delivery to 82 Maple Grove Lane. The box already in his van, its scratches now forming words. "We see you." Ravi tried to refuse the job, deleting the app. But his phone reactivated itself, the screen glowing with the bungalow's address. He smashed it, the glass splintering, but a new phone appeared in his van the next day. Already logged in, the delivery queued. Each night, the deliveries continued, relentless. The box growing warmer, the symbols spreading across its surface, their spirals etching into the van's metal walls. The videos arrived daily, showing him in intimate moments, showering, reading, staring at his phone as he watched the previous video. The angles grew closer, more invasive, filming him from inside his closet, under his bed, behind his eyes. The camera's red light began appearing outside his apartment, blinking in the darkness, even when the power was off. Ravi's life unraveled. He stopped sleeping, the hum of the box echoing in his ears, the scratches forming his name, Ravi. His mirrors began reflecting not his face, but a version of him, pale, eyeless, smiling with teeth too sharp, its eyes black voids that seemed to watch him. He covered them, but the reflections appeared in every shiny surface: his phone, his windows, the van's mirrors. The videos grew longer, showing him in places he didn't remember, standing in the bungalow's backyard, walking its halls, staring out its windows, though he'd never entered. The symbols from the box spread to his apartment, etched into the walls, glowing faintly in the dark, pulsing in time with the camera's light. One night, desperate to end it, Ravi opened the box. Inside was a single eye, human but wrong, its pupil dilating as it stared at him, blinking in sync with the camera's red light. The hum became a scream, sharp and piercing, and the bungalow's back door swung wide in his mind, though he was miles away. The eye rolled, fixing on him, and the van's mirrors reflected it. Hundreds of eyes now, all watching, all his. He dropped the box, the eye slithering across the floor, leaving a trail of dark, oily liquid that smelled of blood. He ran, abandoning the van, but the streets led back to Maple Grove Lane, the bungalow waiting, its windows glowing brighter, the camera's light now a steady beam that burned his skin. Ravi tried moving, leaving the city, but the van followed, parked outside his new apartment, its engine running, its cargo area filled with boxes, all warm, all scratching. The videos showed him in his new home, his new life, the angles impossibly close inside his mouth, behind his eyelids, inside his dreams. The symbols spread to his skin, faint at first, then burning, etching spirals that pulsed with his heartbeat. He stopped eating, the taste of metal in everything, his hands stained with the oily liquid from the boxes. His neighbors complained of a hum, like a machine, coming from his apartment, and a red light blinking in his windows at night. Weeks turned to months, time a haze of fear and exhaustion. Ravi boarded his windows, chained his doors, but the boxers found him, stacking to the ceiling, their scratches deafening, their eyes blinking in unison. The hum was constant, shaking his apartment. His bones, his phone, long destroyed, reappeared on his nightstand, the app open. The delivery queued, 82 Maple Grove Lane. Deliver yourself. The bungalow's camera appeared in his ceiling, its red light pulsing, watching. Last night, he woke to find the box on his chest open, the eyes staring, its pupil dilating as it focused on him. The van was in his bedroom, its headlights on, illuminating a figure in the driver's seat, him, but not him, its face, a mask of eyes, all blinking, all watching. The app buzzed, the screen showing a new instruction: open your eyes. The bungalow's windows glowed through his walls, the hum became his heartbeat, and the figure reached out, its fingers sinking into his chest, pulling him toward the open door. 8-story. The door that answered Sophie Delgado had been a delivery driver for 4 years. Her nights spent navigating the city's labyrinth of streets, delivering packages to sleepy suburbs and crumbling apartment blocks. The work was routine: load the van, follow the app, drop off the goods, move on. She liked the solitude, the way the city quieted after midnight, leaving only the hum of her van and the occasional flicker of a streetlight. But on August 6, 2025, at 12:10 a.m., as a light drizzle coated the city in a sheen of silver, her delivery app pinged with a final job that set her nerves on edge. The address was apartment for B in the Old Mill tenement, a decaying building in a forgotten corner of the city, known for its flickering lights and the rumors of strange noises echoing through its halls. The instructions were simple: leave package at door, no signature required. The package was a single red rose, its petals vibrant but unnervingly cold, wrapped in tissue paper that crinkled like dry skin. The app's interface glitched, the address flickering into unreadable symbols before snapping back, and the customer's name was blank. Sophie shook it off, blaming her phone's age, and started the drive. The city's neon glow fading behind her. The Old Mill tenement loomed at the end of a narrow street, its brick facade stained with mildew, its windows cracked or boarded, staring out like hollow eyes. The air was thick with the smell of damp rot, and the fluorescent lights in the hallway buzzed erratically, casting jagged shadows that seemed to move when Sophie wasn't looking. She climbed to the 4th floor, the stairs creaking under her. Boots, each step echoing unnaturally, as if the building were hollow. Apartment for B's door was old, its paint peeling in strips, revealing wood that looked waterlogged, almost pulsating. She knocked, the sound dull and swallowed by the silence, and waited. No answer came. She knocked again, harder, and the door creaked open an inch, revealing a dark hallway lined with peeling wallpaper that seemed to pulse faintly, like breathing skin. A voice, soft and hollow, whispered from within, "Put it inside." Sophie's heart thudded, her instincts screaming to leave, but the app buzzed. The instructions updating: place package on table inside. Against her better judgment, she pushed the door open, her flashlight casting jittery beams across the hallway. The air inside was cold, heavy with the scent of roses and something sharper, like blood. The hallway stretched further than it should, its walls lined with faded photographs, in cracked frames faces she didn't recognize. Their eyes scratched out, their mouths smeared with red. She found a dusty table at the end, its surface scarred with scratches that formed spirals, and set the rose down, its petals glowing faintly in the darkness. The door slammed shut behind her, plunging the room into near blackness, her flashlight flickering, catching glimpses of shadows tall, thin, with too many limbs darting across the walls. Their movements silent but deliberate, circling her. The rose wilted instantly, its petals falling in a perfect circle, spelling stay in crimson on the table. Sophie's breath caught, her pulse racing as she pried the door open, the hinges, screaming, and stumbled back into the buzzing hallway. The fluorescent lights flickered faster, their buzz now a low chant, whispering her name, Sophie. She ran to her van, her boots slipping on the wet stairs, the smell of roses clinging to her clothes, her skin, her lungs. She sped away, the tenement shrinking in her rearview mirror, but her app buzzed again. A new delivery to 4B, identical to the last, the rose already in her cargo area, its petals wetter, redder, dripping onto the floor. She tried to cancel the job, but her phone froze, the screen flickering with static that formed her face pale, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Each night, the deliveries continued, relentless. The app assigned for B, the rose reappearing in her van, its scent choking the air, its petals forming words, "Come back." She drove to the tenement, the streets looping, the city's lights dimming as she approached, the building's windows glowing a sickly red. The hallway was darker now, the photographs changing her face, her family's, all with scratched-out eyes, their mouths bleeding. The shadows were closer, their limbs longer, their faces clearer, gaunt, hollow-eyed, smiling with teeth too. Sharp. She placed the rose on the table, the petals spelling stay again, but the shadows followed her out, their fingers brushing her skin, cold and wet, like rose petals dipped in ice. Her van reeked of roses, the scent seeping into her dreams. Where the hallway stretched endlessly, the shadows chanting her name. Sophie tried quitting, deleting the app, smashing her phone, but a new one appeared in her van, already logged in. The delivery queued. The tenement's lights began to flicker in patterns, spelling words in Morse code. You belong here. She moved apartments, changed her name, but the van followed, parked outside her new place. Its engine running, its cargo area filled with roses, their petals dripping blood that pooled into her initials. Her mirrors reflected not her face, but hers, pale, eyeless, its mouth sewn shut with red thread that oozed like sap. She smashed them, but the shards showed the same face, its smile wider, its eyes blacker, watching her. The photographs from 4B appeared in her apartment, under her pillow, in her fridge, on her walls, showing her sleeping, eating, driving. The tenement's hallway always in the background, its doors open, the shadows waiting. One night, desperate, Sophie opened the rose's wrapping before delivering it. Inside was a small, cracked mirror, its surface fogged, reflecting not her face, but the tenement's hallway, long, dark, lined with doors that opened and closed on their own. Shadows moved within, their faces hers, their mouths chanting silently, their hands reaching through the frame. The table in 4B was gone, replaced by a pile of roses, their petals forming her name in a sprawling, bloody script. The shadows were closer now, their limbs wrapping around the hallway's walls, their eyes blinking in the darkness. She dropped the mirror, the glass shattering, but the shards reflected the same hallway. The shadows stepping out, their fingers cold, their faces smiling. She ran, but the tenement seemed to move with her, its walls closing in, the hallway stretching behind her, no matter how fast she fled. Sophie's life became a nightmare. She stopped sleeping, the chant of her name constant, the smell of roses. In everything, her food, her clothes, her skin. Her apartment walls began to peel, revealing the tenement's wallpaper, its patterns pulsing like veins. The photographs multiplied, showing her in places she'd never been, standing in 4B's hallway, staring out its windows, lying on its table, her eyes scratched out. The shadows followed her outside, their fingers brushing her neck, her arms, her heart. She tried burning the roses, but they wouldn't catch, the flames curling away as if afraid. She threw them into a river, but they were back in her van by morning, wetter, redder, their petals forming words, welcome home. Weeks turned to months, time, a haze of fear and exhaustion. Sophie boarded her windows, chained her doors, but the roses found her, piling in her apartment, their blood pooling on the floor, spelling her name. The shadows were everywhere, their faces in her mirrors, her windows, her dreams. Her phone, long destroyed, reappeared on her nightstand, the app open, the delivery queued. Apartment for B. Deliver yourself. The tenement's hallway appeared in her apartment, its doors creaking open, the shadows stepping out, their hands cold, their faces hers. Last night, the van was in her bedroom, its headlights on, illuminating a figure on the table, her, but not her, its face a mask of petals, its eyes sewn shut with thread that bled. The app buzzed, the screen showing a new instruction, step inside. The tenement's walls closed in, the roses blooming through her floorboards, and the shadows reached out, their fingers sinking into her skin, pulling her toward the open door.